Hello, my name is Marcy Newton, and welcome to the Faculty Spotlight Conversation Series. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Janssens, who has been teaching in the program in Writing and Critical Inquiry since its first year, 2013. Today, we talk about his love of teaching in WCI, the importance of bringing impactful readings into the classroom, how his teaching has evolved over the years, his love of Arsenal Football Club, and so much more. Please join me in welcoming Jeff. Jeff, welcome. Right, it's really great that you could join me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So you were part of the first cohort to join WCI back in 2013. What inspired you to join the program?
I guess the long story. So I'd moved here the year before with my wife. She'd gotten a job teaching at Siena College, her first tenure track job. And so we were thinking, okay, this is a chance to settle in. Of course, I could use a job as well. So, the basics, I needed a job. But I'd been teaching before. I taught the previous year at Appalachian State University while we were down there in North Carolina. And then before that, I spent 3 years in Ohio at North Central State College, which is a community college connected to the Ohio State University. So I had the teaching experience. I really enjoyed teaching, writing. I even taught some literature classes there, despite not really having the background for it. And all of it I enjoyed. And so I wanted to keep teaching. And that was my primary goal when I got out here. So I only looked for opportunities where I could sort of further my teaching career. It was a very small job, but I did some tutoring over at Schenectady Community College in our first year out here that spring. And I met somebody who worked in EOP here at UAlbany. And through her, I was able to get connected and get a job teaching in EOP that summer. And through EOP, then I learned about WCI's development and was encouraged by the EOP writing director at the time to apply for this job. He said, "This is right up your alley. You should go for it." He knew Bob Yagelski, our former director. And so there you go. That's how it all kind of came together. And it just seemed like it was right up my alley in terms of the kind of work that I wanted to do, being able to work with freshmen, having some freedom, having some flexibility in terms of what we teach. So it was great timing and everything. So, yeah.
And Jeff, as I know, you're a creative writer as well. So how does your background in creative writing influence what you do and what you bring to the classroom, what you, in the first year writing class?
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about the different ways, because at first you think, well, it's a little limiting in terms of, okay, we have one essay where students are allowed to really be properly creative, and the other work, is more academic. Creative and academic a lot of times don't go together. But I think the main thing is really pushing students and being able to tap into this from my own experiences into, just being creative in whatever you do, using your own mind, your own thoughts. This is something I think now have to think about a lot with AI in the classroom. So I encourage it even more, but it's all about expressing yourself, being able to put yourself on the page. And that's something I think you learn from doing creative work. And so, starting the semester and having them do an essay where they can be creative, I can sort of push them to do that, to tell stories, to think about narrative, to think about how, how their experiences, even though when you think about like how life goes, life is not linear. The way things happen chronologically don't necessarily make for a good story. But then when you think about it, you can bring those experiences together in a way that it is about storytelling. So, yeah.
So it's like you're encouraging your students to step out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And do you believe that stepping outside your comfort zone as an instructor has transformed how you connect with your students?
I think so. It's really interesting to think about because, with when we started, when I started back in 2013, which feels like yesterday, but also feels like a really long time ago, I think we've seen over that time, God, coming up on a dozen years, right? The ways in which our students have changed and their perspectives, just everything. I used to think, I was a young guy who could connect with students and I could reference like music and things like that I knew and they knew. And in ways like that, even I now feel older, much older, and disconnected from them in certain ways like that. But it's still a matter of thinking, how do I connect with them? How do I understand where they're coming from, what their experiences are these days? Because I think with young people today, their experiences are just so much different than ours were growing up in high school and now as college students. And so I think for me, it's a matter of kind of keeping an open mind and just suspending judgment sometimes in terms of thinking, well, I would never do that. I would never be that way. That's not how it was for me in college. That's not how my life was. And so, but you have to have empathy. And that's one thing I always try to teach them is, empathy is the most important thing. And so trying to understand that, yes, that is something that is outside my field of perspective from when I was their age. But that doesn't mean I can't still understand and feel something and connect with them on just that human level with these things. And so in terms of the teaching, it's just a matter of willingness to be flexible, willingness to try to, see things through different perspectives, which is what we always teach, our students to do, and hope that works out well in the end. So.
Yeah. And I know I don't know if you're still doing that, but you had food used to be like a really large theme of your classes. Now, why did you choose food as a theme, and how did that enhance your students' writing or engagement?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think, in that first year when I'd been living out here and was trying to find the right job and things like that, I had free time on my hands. And so I started a food blog. And then that led to some food writing for the website All Over Albany, which is now defunct, sadly. So we need a resource like that for the area. And so I'd been doing that, and I'd been thinking about food a lot, which is, could say is a good thing or a bad thing. But one of the things that it encouraged me to do was just think about, okay, yes, I'm writing about restaurants and things like that. But when you think about it in terms of writing, and looking at the work that others have done writing about food, it goes in so many different directions. And I think, some of the readings, because I always like to include a lot of readings in my classes. And we read everything from article by Michael Pollan, an excerpt from his book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. We read an essay by Anthony Bourdain. We read an essay by the chef and author Gabrielle Hamilton. And just bringing in these perspectives about, experiences with food, right? Because everyone has some experience with food. So I thought in terms of the personal essay, there are ways in which we're all impacted by food. Food is present at important moments of our lives. Sometimes food tells stories about traditions and cultures and things like that are so impactful and important to us, right? And so on that level, it felt perfect. And then I thought, well, but in terms of the more academic work, how would that translate? And I started to realize quickly with, speaking of the Michael Pollan work he did, he's somebody who, he writes for a general audience, right? His books are bestsellers for, I don't know, The Omnivore's Dilemma was a bestseller for years, I think. And yet he does serious research in these pieces. He does work that I think students can understand, that they can appreciate, and they can see that they can see the way his brain is working in his work, and that's one of the things I like. And so I still teach an article by him, even though I'm not focused on food anymore. It still works for what I'm trying to do, and so I still teach it, because even though organic food is not the most important thing to our students, he poses a question and he seeks to answer it, and he uses research, he uses personal experience, and it's a genuinely impactful piece for them. So that was what I realized, is that you can tap into some really serious and important issues through the lens of food. You may not think so at first glance, right? You may think, oh, this is just kind of fun, whatever. And then you realize that the ethical issues that you can talk about with factory farms, things like that, the controversies with GMO versus conventional food, and some of the topics that students would come up with for their final essays, I just thought, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have thought of that. And I'm so excited that you're writing about this, because I'm going to learn something from it. Oh yeah.
And do you have like a particular theme that you're working on now? I mean,
yeah, now it's more of I'm going a little broader. And I'm thinking about it in terms of place or environment. But then I sort of think of it in terms of, I tell students, it's more about what does it mean to live in America today? And I think, going back to some of what we talked about before, I really want to push students outside of themselves, and I want them to look at the world around them. Yes, we start personal, right? We start with the personal essay, the personal experience, things like that. But you then start to realize your place in the world, and then you can start to look at issues surrounding yourself. And so often, in terms of place, in terms of environment, it's not necessarily just about environmentalism or things like that. It's not nature writing necessarily. I mean, it can be. I find if students want to do that, but it can. I think where you grow up, whether it's the neighborhood, the city, the state, the region, the part of the country, if it's another country, we get that sometimes with students. It can really speak to who you are, the person you are, the challenges you face, things like that are rooted so often in where you grow up and those experiences you have because of that. And so I really enjoy sort of pushing them to start thinking about the world outside of themselves through these topics, these issues. I have them look at right now, for instance, I'm having students do their group presentations, and so they're talking about things like climate change, talking about issues like, well, a carryover from my food classes, food insecurity and hunger, and things related to that, issues relating to housing.
Yeah, that's so really interesting, Jeff. Sort of, those, insights on. To me, when I was sort of hearing that, I was sort of making me think about, ways in which our teaching evolves, right, from when we start, in the program. And like, you've been here for what, 12 years now? Yeah. So how, sort of, working with these themes, how has that sort of spoken to your evolution as a teacher, in terms of your teaching philosophy?
Yeah, it is interesting. I think sometimes when working with a theme, it can feel limiting. And that's one of the challenges in terms of, is it, am I going to get tired of this as a teacher? Because we teach the same class over and over and over again, which I think has its positives, but it can have its negatives as well, because you can get really just sick of the material you're using. So you have to think, firstly, I tell students this in terms of choosing a topic for their final paper where they're going to be doing research for several weeks. And I say, you have to pick a topic that is going to be interesting to you, that you're not going to get bored with, that's not going to, drag you down and leave you feeling a malaise basically over this assignment. We have to think of this in terms of our work as teachers, don't we? Because we're human, whether students realize this or not. We are human, and we get bored by our own work sometimes. And so I think, going back, like I said, the Michael Pollan essay, I've been teaching that for several years, and another one, a Chiang-Rae Lee essay called Magical Dinners, about his experiences as a Korean American and his mom's experiences growing up in New Jersey in the 1970s and what that was like, basically. And it's an essay that has endured, not just for students, but for myself. And I still look at it. I still learn from it. So,
yeah. And can you talk a bit more about your own growth as a writer and how that has also impacted your development as a teacher?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, one of the things that, especially over the past 5 years, I've been thinking more about, instead of writing short stories, more thinking about, can I write a novel more? And so it is weird because I'm thinking in my own work about writing longer, and this is not what we're doing with our students these days. And so in some ways it's very different. It's like I'm pulling away farther from what I'm having students do. But at the same time, I also think in terms of, again, that revision process. I wrote a novel that didn't start as a novel back in mostly worked on it in 2020, 2021 as short stories. And then I started to think of this and reconceive it as a novel. And again, that revision process and telling students, look, this was 300 pages that I basically went back to the start and started over again from the beginning. And if I can do that, you can do that for a 5-page piece, little things like that. But then also in terms of just, again, thinking about, one of the great things about writing novels is that you can bring in so many different perspectives. You can bring in, the amount of characters that you can create on the page and the different stories that you can tell. And so again, just sort of thinking about our students and the work we do with them, the way we get to know them. Not that I'm putting any students in my stories or in my novels, but you can also sort of understand through their writing just sort of what's important to young people these days. And if you want to create young people as characters, really kind of tapping into that is useful as well. Getting to see their perspectives, getting to see what matters to them, their concerns, their worries, just everything about the way the world is working around them and is stressing them out and everything.
What would you say was the most rewarding aspect of teaching our students?
I don't know. There's so many, right? There's so many ways we could look at this. And I just think, I think one of the frustrating things, I'll start by going negative first. Here. The frustrating
After
thing,
all this talk about
positivity, I think the frustrating thing, we don't get to work with our students for more than one semester. And some of our colleagues do peer mentor, with students. But even still, it's not the same, right? It's not the same as having a student in, multiple students in your class for 3 semesters in a row or something like that. So we basically have one semester with them. But in that one semester, we do get to know them really well. And I think, and I start to feel this around this time of the semester where we're, about 2/3 of the way in, and we start to see some of the walls break down, I think, for them. Because we get a lot of students who come in, I think, are skeptical about writing. They are skeptical about our class. They are required to take this class, and they, some of them are resentful about that. Some are resentful because they say, "I know how to write. I'm a good writer." We have honor students who are, fantastic writers when they step into the classroom, and yet, I mean, for both sides of it, right? You have the students who hate writing, who are opposed to it on a fundamental level, probably because of bad experiences they've had in the past in classrooms. You have the students who feel like, I'm too good for this. I don't need this, And at some point, you start to see for so many of them, the walls breaking down, where the students who are just opposed to writing, who had bad experience with it, start to realize, maybe this isn't so bad after all. Maybe I can write, and maybe I kind of like it actually. And then, I mean, that personally is just, I mean, that's the best. That's when you start to see that, when you start to see those walls come down and students just sort of be themselves, and then be themselves on the page as well. And to write about things they care about, and to start to do research and get into it and get excited about it. I mean, that's super fun. That's just the best thing. And then even those students who feel like, I don't need this class, I can already write. I look at them and I see at some point over the course of the semester just the fun that they have of immersing themselves in topics. Because again, the flexibility I have with this course now, where it's, the what does it mean to live in America today? And the different kinds of topics, the different kinds of research they can do, the work that some of them are doing in their group projects right now. Like I have students who sometimes, like, they immerse themselves enough in a topic like food insecurity that they start to think, like, you can like have a job doing things like this. Like, I kind of like this. Can I do this for a living? Like something related to this that's important, but I also care about. And it's like, yes, you can, And so that's one of the just, again, just our feelings that we have that keep us going and keep us motivated in the classroom. Because again, it's frustrating that we don't have these students for more than one semester, but also it's like by the end of the semester, you hope they have their wings and they fly. And if so, then you sort of think, okay, go. And then we'll hopefully hear back from them sometime, maybe need letters of recommendation. And then you realize, oh wow, this student's going to do this now in their life. And maybe our class had a small part in that. And that's really cool. So,
I think it's so important to take into consideration the students' relationship to writing, right? And when they come into our classes, we don't know if they're strong writers, or how, we don't know their backgrounds. We don't know what experiences they've had with writing. So it's really, drawing out that confidence, and so that they see themselves as writers and thinkers. We can't underestimate the power of that.
Yeah. I mean, and I just think that so often it is this level of self-doubt that these students have. And we don't know, right? There's so much we don't know. I mean, it's, we can talk about, pets and cats, and you've done your fostering of animals and things like this over the years. So
I was going to say, I wanted to shift gears to
but you see these animals come into your lives, and I can speak to my old cat who we got, and he was still young. He was like 4 months old when we got him, but the stories we heard about him from the folks of the shelter, and we adopted him, what his life had been like before that, it makes you think, okay, our students, what have their experiences been like? We have no idea, right? The different classes, the different ways of grading they've experienced, the things they've been taught. Sometimes we don't agree with how they've been taught. No offense to their old teachers, but sometimes I think teachers can do serious damage. They can do serious harm. And so we sort of have, it's like bringing a pet into your life who's like damaged from previous experiences, and you have to work with them gradually and, get them to know that this is, you're safe here, you're comfortable here. This is going to be a different life for you here. And it's that way for our students in our classrooms. Like we want them to feel comfortable. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel like they can express themselves and they can be themselves. And yeah, it's not easy though. So
talking about pets,
yes.
How are Olive and Maple?
They're good. They're good.
I think we have a picture, a photo of Olive and Maple.
This is, there are a lot of pictures of them. There are videos of them now. I don't know if it's going to persist, but I've decided maybe I should start uploading some videos of them to YouTube now. So they are, are they 8 months old now? It's at that age now where it's just like, oh my God, they're like real cats now, not little tiny kittens anymore. But we got them at 4 months old. And maybe they're 9 months old now. Oh my God. Yeah. 9 months old now. And their personalities are coming out more and more in different ways. And we're just loving that's why I said, let's like with students, just seeing them, blossom in some ways. And they're becoming weirder, I think, by the day, which is entertaining. And just, they're also seeming very different. And that's really funny because they are sisters from the same litter. Mm-hmm. But they're adorable and they're hilarious. And it's wonderful having them, around these days. Although sometimes I'm late for my office hours because they need a lot of attention in the afternoon. So, if anyone comes by and they're like, where is he? I'll blame the two adorable little kittens because that's, you can't be mad at them, really.
Yeah. That reminds me, actually.
Oh, boy.
There we go.
This is exciting. This is their favorite.
Bonkers.
Oh, my God. These are the best. And also highly recommended the same brand. They have lollipops.
Oh, you were talking about those.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen those, but I keep my eye out.
I found a case of them at Ocean State Job Lot the other day. 12 of them in a case for like $4. So you might want to cruise on down there at some point. So cool. Yeah.
Also, for audience, you're so welcome. You're a bit of a footy fan. So how is Arsenal doing?
Well, I mean, it's been an interesting painful at times season for them. Painful, literally. Lots of injuries. I appreciate the red mug. This is good thematic colors for this, but they're still alive. Temporarily in the Champions League. They're second. And this is probably going to be the third year in a row that they'll finish second, which hurts when you haven't finished first in 2 decades. So now second is really good, right? Yeah. But then you also, once you finish second once and then twice, you can't help but desire first. But then they've had so many injuries this season. They persevered, but it's been a struggle, let's put it, to be in second place. But and still in the Champions League, but they have to play Real Madrid. So by the time this goes to air, they'll probably be long gone from that. So.
Yeah. Well, I wish them luck. I wish you luck. Do you have like all the Arsenal memorabilia over your house?
I don't have too much. I have some of the shirts. Sometimes my wife is like, wait, where did that one come from? How many do you have? You're going to have just the whole wardrobe every season? And I said, well, I just, I needed the new home kit. And then for now I'm done. I mean, granted, we'll see what next season brings, but I'm right. So
yeah. I've got one final question for you, Jeff.
Okay.
Purple or gold?
I'll go with purple. Purple is a weird color because sometimes it can be kind of gaudy, like in too much excess. Purple can be overwhelming, but I go back, my basketball team, I grew up supporting the Sacramento Kings, Northern California, light the beam. This is truly arguably the worst professional sports team in the history of like contemporary American sports. But they changed their colors to purple in maybe the early to mid 90s. So right when I was growing up with them, and where I grew up, Sacramento was our closest city and they're the only professional team there. And so I developed something of a fondness for purple.
Jeff, thanks ever so much for joining me for this conversation. It was absolutely wonderful having you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun talking to you. So